Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tonight with George. So, today we're going to talk about a really interesting paradox about how Africans move and how they are represented in the United States. First, so by 2019, about 2.1 million people from Sub-Saharan Africa lived in the United States. That's about 5% of all immigrants. But here's the weird twist: they are more educated, more likely to work, yet they earn less and face higher poverty. Now let's talk why. Large scale African migration into the US is relatively recent. It picked up after three major US laws. First, in 1965, um, when immigration opened beyond Europe and mostly through family ties. Then in 1980, through expanded refugee admissions. Then later in 1990, where skilled worker pathways were created, and then also the diversity visa lottery were added to it. The last one mattered a lot for countries like Ghana, for a long time Nigeria, even though recently they are no longer, um, up until this year, they were no longer allowed to participate. But honestly, right now, the current administration has banned the whole process. So even for countries like Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa, it mattered in recent times, but this year so far is on hold. Now we will talk about that later in a follow-up video, but for now, let's just take that as a fact. So, who is coming from Africa and where do they live? Well, overall, half of sub-Saharan African immigrants come from just five countries. That's Nigeria, Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, and Somalia. Well, they are generally spread across the US but concentrated in Texas, New York, Maryland, California, and then Minnesota. And if you're not aware, so California is right here. It's the biggest state on the map I just show on the screen. It is the left lower portion of the map, but primarily I mean Georgia, Texas, New York, and Minneapolis are where they are mostly concentrated. Now, the biggest metro areas, of course, given the state they are in, is New York, definitely. DC, generally known as the DMV area, Dallas, naturally, Minneapolis, and Atlanta. Now, understand that if you're coming in, you have to get into the cities where the your network is likely to be, like in cities like New York, maybe Bronx. It's a huge Ghanaian population there. Massachusetts, Worcester, there's a huge Ghanaian population there. So getting to those areas is key. But on top of that, when you do get there, try to take whatever you bring, your education, and get it to a level that it helps you to stand out. All right. So again, if you're an African immigrant in the United States, um, happy to learn about you guys. Drop a comment, ask a question, and I believe this particular session has been a borderless brilliant session because regardless of how relatively unequal that the level of education African immigrants are getting, brings them in terms of value in income. It is a great thing to be educated. It just means we just need to do things a little bit different to get the full value that our wonderful degrees bring to us. All right, thanks.